Thanks for joining us. This has been an interesting process. It's weird talking about our building as a building and thinking about our building as a building as opposed to all the services and all the folks that come through our building. But this is a special time for us. We are celebrating our centennial. And I just want to say we're going to have a great time this year. So welcome to Parks at 100, Art, Architecture, and Innovation. This lecture is part of our centennial celebration of the 1925 original library building. It's the portion of Parks Library that you are currently seated in. The celebration kicked off January 6th and will continue into the fall semester, so stay tuned and watch for more events to come. Tonight, our panelists will present on art in the library, park architecture over the years, and the vision for Parks Library, followed by a Q&A. So we're going to hold all the questions to the end. And after that, we invite you to join us up in the rotunda for refreshments, and our some of our student employees, as well as a member of our library staff, will be on hand to give you tours. So you don't have to keep listening to me. I am going to hand it over to our first speakers, and it is my pleasure to introduce two of our curators from Iowa State University's University Museums, who have been instrumental in bringing in art that inspires, piques curiosity, and reflects the broad areas of research and human experiences found in the University Library. Sydney Marshall is a curator for the University Museums, overseeing the Art on Campus collection and the Anderson Sculpture Garden. She earned a bachelor's in anthropology and history from Iowa State in 2015, and a master's degree in museum and field studies at the University of Colorado Boulder in 2019. Okay, I should have had Landon bring a mouse. Alison Ranniger Van Zante is the curator of the Christian Peterson Art Museum on campus. She holds a bachelor's from Central College in Pella and a master's in arts and culture, specializing in art history and theory from Leiden University in the Netherlands, where she served as a curatorial assistant for the Museum Beelden aan Zee. Close enough, that's what I figured, focusing on national and international sculpture. So please welcome Alison and Sydney. Oh, sorry.
Hi, thank you all for welcoming us here tonight. The University Museums includes 3 campus museums. The Ranniger Art Museum, the Farmhouse Museum, and the Christian Peterson Art Museum, as well as the Art on Campus collection and the Anderson Sculpture Garden, which is between Beardshire and Morrill Hall. The University Museums exist to foster understanding and delight in the visual arts with a focus on creative interactions in arts, sciences, and technology. As an educational and cultural resource, the museums nurture knowledge of and appreciation for the university's cultural heritage and its present cultural context.
Okay, so today we're talking about the University Library at 100 years, and this is a really good example of art being integrated into the campus essentially from the beginning. Lots of sites on this building and within this building were specifically set aside for public art in its construction, and you'll see in our presentation some of those really integrated works of art throughout the building. So the first one we have as you're coming into the building, so where we are now and in this center area is the original entrance to the Parks Library. And basically from the beginning of the construction, sites were set aside here to have bas-reliefs. So these were the first public works of art on the campus in the library. So a very public building where everyone could pass by. And these were done by Nellie Verne Walker. So she was a Iowa artist who was born in Red Oak, Iowa in 1874. and she was a well-known sculptor during her lifetime. She had a sculpture of Abraham Lincoln in the World's Columbian exhibition in Chicago, and she also, until 2014, had a sculpture in the rotunda of the United States Capitol of the Senator James Harlan. So she basically used these two facades to show the current, at that time, 1900 to 1924 areas of study for both men and women. So the south panel, well, this is actually the north panel, is what was dedicated for women's study at the time. So art, home economics, and literature. And then the southern panel was the curriculum for men. So engineering, science, veterinary medicine, and agriculture. As you can see, they are very kind of stylized Greek Beaux Arts style, so that is something that will change over the years in Iowa State and Parks Library's art. But you'll see it in Parks Library, Marston Hall, Curtis. This kind of style was prevalent at the time. Okay, so moving forward, 1930s, soon after the construction of the library, President Raymond Hughes came to Iowa State College in 1927. So he really guided the college through the Great Depression, and he realized the unique opportunity of the federally funded New Deal program of the Public Works of Art project, so PWAP. He requested Grant Wood, who was the leader of that program in Iowa, to present a plan for murals in the library. And he was in charge of kind of bringing different artists and proposing a mural series for the library space. Again, very public space where everyone would come through the main entrance of the library to see this work of art. The title is When Tillage Begins, Other Arts Follow for the upstairs portion, and that was what was painted first. It's based off of a Daniel Webster quote, "When tillage begins, other arts follow. The farmers, therefore, are the founders of human civilization." Grant Wood and then 14 other students from the University of Iowa painted the mural in Iowa City, and it was painted in an emptied out pool, which is this is kind of a fun picture with the scaffolding. You can see different artists working on the different panels on the left side for the agriculture. And really, this program was meant to keep different artists employed throughout the Great Depression. And you can really see in a lot of these panels, it was meant to show students finishing their degree, going back out into their careers in either agriculture, on the farm, but you can also see on this left side, veterinary medicine and like kind of the professionalization of these different careers. The center panels for home economics, again, showing women in the home, but also having the different categories of food science, child rearing, things like this. And then finally on the right side is the different engineering panels as well.
So breaking the prairie sod, which is what you would have seen coming in that original east entrance. Obviously the entrance has changed, you can't enter from there anymore, but this would have been something that every student person entering the library would have seen. Space-wise, this was a very important location. Breaking the Prairie Sod is a triptych commissioned for the alcove on the ground floor of the Iowa State Library, which originally served as the building's main entrance, as I said, and then the mural is actually the first in the narrative cycle of Wood's murals, but it was, as Sydney mentioned, painted last. So it was painted in the years after the Public Works of Art project had ended. Grant Wood kind of passed on the responsibility to one of his former students who worked on When Tillage Begins, Other Arts Follow, Francis McCrae. And this was painted in the new Fine Arts building at the State University of Iowa, which is now University of Iowa. So they were painted there and then brought here and installed. So the main panel that you see here, this is a plowing scene. You have an older plowing scene in the background versus a more, at that time, contemporary plowing scene. This is actually a John Deere plow, which at the time students would have been able to recognize. And the two scenes on the left and the right are images of Abraham Lincoln, who importantly signed the Morrill Act. Iowa was the first state to accept the provisions of the Morrill Act in 1862, becoming the first land-grant university in the nation. So many Iowa Staters are familiar with Christian Peterson's iconic campus sculptures like the Fountain of the Four Seasons located in front of the Memorial Union, but few realize that his time in Iowa came mid-career during the Great Depression. So with the onset of the Great Depression, as Sydney mentioned, Franklin D. Roosevelt came out with the New Deal programs, which included the Public Works of Art Project. The Public Works of Art Project was led by Grant Wood here in Iowa, and it assisted unemployed artists by enabling them to work on the decoration of non-federal public buildings. Iowa State Library. So as Sydney mentioned, Iowa State President Raymond Hughes wasted no time in recruiting Grant Wood and Christian Peterson to design murals for the Parks Library, and for Peterson, the Dairy Industry Building, which you can see him working on in both of these pictures that were taken by the Des Moines Register at the University of Iowa. So as a result of President Hughes' efforts, Iowa State has the two largest murals designed by Grant Wood in its collection, and claims Christian Peterson, who came to Iowa State in 1934, as the first sculptor in residence at any college or university in the nation. He was also the only sculptor in the Iowa PWAP. So many of you are probably familiar with Library Boy and Girl. As we talk about the east entrance being the original and I think only front entrance to the library, this would have been what you saw right away going in. So in 1944, Christian Peterson designed these larger-than-life sculptures for these two pedestals flanking the stairway. These two pedestals that you see here were there when Grant Wood installed the murals. They were originally for lights. They did not end up installing these lights, and so Peterson created these to fit these kind of pedestals. So everything from the design down to the floor was already there when he was working on it. Peterson's Library Boy and Girl demonstrates his ability to bring the same inclusive approach to his interior sculpture as he does to his outdoor public works of art. So these two were modeled after Iowa State students. And the two figures, as you can see, kind of are just sitting modestly on their little pedestals on either side of that stairwell. At first glance, they look like they're reading their books, but as you can see, they are kind of looking at each other. So it really activates the space as you're walking in between them, which I think is really fun. The final sculptures, importantly, oh no.
No, that did it.
Oh, okay. So importantly, these final sculptures are displayed right next to the Breaking the Prairie mural. And as you walk in between them, you are walking up to the When Tillage Begins, Other Arts Follow mural. So these murals represent the origins of Midwestern culture and the impact of the land-grant college like Iowa State. In response to this scene, the Library Boy and Girl humanize the grand and historical and educational narratives kind of surrounding the university and the library. This further emphasizes the University Museum's goal to create public partnerships, as we have with the University Library, to foster the integration of the arts and cultural heritage as a central part of people's lives at Iowa State University. And as I said before, you can't really go anywhere on campus without seeing a Peterson sculpture. So there you go.
And then lastly, just to sum up, I wanted to kind of continue the story further. Iowa State continues to add public art to campus. We won't go into the history of these too much, but in the 1980s, right, left-sided angel added to the exterior of the addition at that point. And then continuing in the theme of the When Tillage Begins, Other Arts Follow, another mural series was created in 1997 using a head artist, employing other student artists to create a more, at that time, modernized view of the student experience at Iowa State. And lastly, too, in 1998, the Shoulders of Giants sculpture is right outside in the front entry, showing that kind of mentorship between student and faculty member. And of course, there's many other prints throughout the library. Presidential portraits are here. It's really a housing for many, many works of art throughout the entire building. So keep an eye out. And lastly, sorry, you're all the 100th anniversary. It's University Museum's 50th in September as well. So we have many events throughout the year. So definitely keep an eye out. We're always doing something. So come visit us, I guess.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Sydney and Allison. Never know where to stand. So next, we have Professor Paul Mankins. Professor Mankins is a fellow in the American Institute of Architects and is the founder and consulting principal at Substance Architecture in Des Moines. Prior to founding Substance in 2004, he was an associate principal at Herbert Louis Cruz Blanc Architecture. He has a Bachelor of Arts from Iowa State University and a Master's of Architecture from Yale University. Professor Mankins is currently Professor of Practice in Architecture at our College of Design. Please welcome Paul.
Hopefully this will work. It sounds like it will. You can hear me okay? Great. Obviously, I wish this was in a different order so I didn't have to follow up that much meaningful information. I want to start by just a caveat. I'm not an architectural historian. So I'm an architect. I'm an architecture enthusiast. I'm also an alum of Iowa State University. So this was actually a really interesting opportunity for me to learn more about the library. I thought I knew a fair amount about it, but digging through some of the archives and information that was assembled by Steve Stimmel, who is a retired partner at Brooks, Borg & Skiles, I was able to get a lot of information about the building, and I'll try to go through it pretty quickly. So I'm going to talk about architecture. It's going to be a very quick kind of presentation. I'm going to talk about the library's place on the campus, talk about the building's evolution, which includes this original 1925 building, but I'll talk briefly about the 1961 first edition, an edition in 1968 that was the second edition. That's glamorous name for it. We'll call it the second edition. And in 1985, the third edition, which is what we really think of now as the way the building appears from the south. And then finally, to just talk a little bit about how it's a reflection of the evolution of Iowa State University's campus. Obviously, over the last 100 years, Iowa State has gone through a transformative history, and it's kind of interesting to look back at where we came from. So as all of you know, Iowa State is really very close to the center of Iowa State University's campus. It anchors the northwest corner of what we now call Central Campus, and comprises about 325,000 square feet in all all the additions. You're shaking your head, which makes me think there's someone here that can check my numbers, and that makes me extremely nervous. I was thinking I could probably fake it. You're pretty close. Okay. So this is like the roof plan of the entire complex, all 325,000 square feet. And the original building was really this I-shaped wing, of which we're in the southeast quadrant of currently. This is the Iowa State University campus in 1913. So planning for the library began in 1913. You can see from this slide that, sorry to go back, that Central Campus was there, but that was really the campus. And it's called the public grounds in this image. Yeah, sorry about that. Beardshire was just completed. Curtis Hall was complete. The hub was a trolley stop, and you can kind of see the trolley turnaround north of that little building. Morrill Hall was present, and that's really where the library collection was at that time, well, between there and Beardshire. Marston Hall had been built, and then Alumni Hall, which for a long time was actually the YMCA on Iowa State University's campus. And so they identified this site, which was just a northwest of the public grounds, to design this new building. And they commissioned Proudfoot, Bird & Rawson, which is a celebrated Des Moines firm. They were the go-to Beaux-Arts architecture firm in Iowa for the first part of the 20th century. They had recently completed Beardshire and Curtis. They designed Marston Hall. They would go on to do the Memorial Union. They did the LeBaron. And if you had a classical style building that, and you were an institution that wanted to prove its street cred, you went to Brooks Borg, which was Proudfoot Bird, and then Proudfoot Bird & Rawson. They were commissioned in 1920, so they went through about a 3-year design process and started construction in 1922. So here they're clearing the site to get ready for the building, and you can see there's not much more than trees to clear. There, you can see the armory was there in the distance. But there's not much on this northwest portion of campus. The building is actually a steel frame construction. It started in late 1922. The masons set the cornerstone in 1923, and the building was completed in 1925. So this is an image of the very brand new university library at Iowa State College. It's an interesting image because if you look to the left, you get kind of a glimpse of Marston Hall in the distance. And if you look to the right, you get a glimpse of almost nothing. This is the view of the new library from in front of Morrill Hall. So stately, classical building. And this, for an architect, this was interesting to me. This is the west elevation of the original building. And this has been lost for 65 years. No one's seen this elevation. This went into the stack space for the building. And like most libraries at this time, these are closed stacks. So you would request a book, the librarian would secure the book and deliver it to you in what was called the delivery room, which was off of the rotunda upstairs. And the major public space was the reading room. And so this is the reading room in 1925. And you can see from the bookcases up, it's a very mute color palette, mostly white, actually, whites and grays. And it's filled with, happy suffragettes who have just recently got the right to vote. And by the late 1940s, it looked like this. So now it's filled with GIs who are flooding Iowa State University, and the population, the student population has exploded at this point. In the 1930s, they started planning for an addition to the library, but because of the Depression, they could never actually afford to build that addition. Finally, by 1937, the cost estimates had come in so high, they knew they were never going to meet that goal, and so they just stopped planning. So this is 1948. By 1958, it looks like this. So we're like busting at the seams in terms of space, given that that's the major public space in this building. And so they began planning for the first addition to this building, which of course we glamorously call the 1961 first edition. So, you know, most of this building really has been subsumed, you know, by architecture. So you're not really aware of it, but they took roughly 80,000 square feet and nearly doubled it on 4 levels. You can see that there's this round kind of hernia to the south, and that was actually the entry rotunda. So the building was reoriented. It no longer entered from the east, you were to enter from the south. And that south rotunda faced a parking lot. So south of this building, between here and the hub here in Marston Hall, that was parking. So you took your Studebaker over here and you drove to the library and you entered that new rotunda. And here you can start to see the floor plan. There's an entry rotunda. You have to negotiate a grade change just like you do in the original building. And then it's really a block that doesn't expand the stack space, but provides open shelving and more seating for students. So they started construction in late 1950s, 59. Digging the hole here, you can start to see how still pretty vacant this part of campus is. There's a barrack building next to, along the west side of what would be the addition. As the building went up, you can start to understand it. So these slabs vertical slabs that you're seeing in the foreground is actually part of that rotunda that would emerge. And then this image, you start to understand, you know, architecturally, you start to understand the building. They're taking the west wing of the original building and kind of echoing it with a very abstract kind of limestone 1961 style version of that mass, and then there's a rotunda in the foreground, and then they separate the two by this kind of stair tower piece. You know, in the business, we glamorously call this a glass zipper. This is the glass zipper between the modern limestone to the west and the historic building to the east, and here you're starting to see that relationship. So the limestone, the new limestone doesn't touch the old limestone. It's held apart by glass. And then the spaceship in the front is that entry rotunda facing this parking lot where this photograph is taken from. Inside the rotunda, again, they've got to negotiate the grade change, so you've got to move up. You move in. One of the doors to the rotunda is entry. One of the doors is exit. And there's a monitor that sits between the two. So you come in on one side, you exit on the other, and there's a kind of a monitor there before you go up the stairs and into the building. Very, very shortly afterwards, they start planning for another addition. This is the second edition from 1968. So again, the plan of the building, you can see they just simply expanded to the north. And this is really about warehousing books. In the plan, you can kind of see the red is the 1961 edition, and they go to fill it out. So in this, the stacks get expanded to the north, and then the open areas for seating and for study carrels get expanded. Now, this is not a beloved building, and I can tell from that from the special collections, which only has 3 photographs of it. This one, which even if it wasn't winter, has all the warmth of the Soviet Union, and when you get inside, it's just a little bit warmer. It's a sea of fluorescent lights and study carrels with books. This is the 3rd image that I was able to find of that. So, you know, you basically took what I can only imagine was a significant amount of natural light that got into the stack spaces and removed that because sun's bad. That really remained in place until right about 1980 when they started planning the third edition. The third edition was done by, I should have stated, 68 and 61 were done by Brooksborg Skiles. Brooksborg and Skiles is the successor firm to Proudfoot Bird Rawson, Proudfoot Bird Rawson Sauer, and it goes on, and then they changed to Brooksborg, and then Brooksborg and Skiles. So it's a firm with a very long lineage and a very distinguished history. And so for the first building and the first two editions, that kind of gene pool did those buildings. The 85 edition was done by Charles Herbert and Associates, which then became Herbert Lewis Cruzy Blanc, which is a firm I worked at for a couple decades. Charles Herbert and Associates did this building, did Black Engineering, did the Maple Willow Large Towers, did the Jacobson building at the north end of Jack Trice. And so they did a number of buildings around campus too. And I'm because no one from Brooksborg's here, I can say this. Brooksborg dominated the first half of the 20th century, and they were the design practice. I would say that Charles Herbert and Associates and then Herbert Lewis Cruzy Blanc was the premier design practice in the last half of the 20th century. And this is, I think, really a strong example of their work. Here again, you're kind of seeing what was built up to that point, and they built to the south. So they're building on what was then a parking lot, and proposed reconsidering the campus space south of this building, which really did transform Iowa State University's campus. When I came to Iowa State, which was in 1981, when you entered the building, because this was under construction, you came through the historic entrance, and immediately across from the Grant Wood mural was this model. So as an architecture student, you're like, I got to see what architecture models looked like, done by professionals. And it was just a really interesting experience. And then to be able to watch the building be built during the time I was here was really interesting. It is a limestone clad building, so it's clad in limestone from the same Indiana source that the original building was done, and it was dedicated in 1985. This is the dedication. Obviously, Durham Hall isn't there, so this camera person is standing about where Durham Hall is and looking back at the dedication crowd. The fundamental change of this building is that it didn't reorient the entry to the south, but it really made the south entry something more than just an expeditious way to get into the building from a parking lot. It really made it the way in which you move from campus and into the building. And so this becomes the kind of entry expression for this new library. And architecturally, they're interested in the idea of reflection, that you're reflecting the old back in the new. And so this selection of glass is particularly, it's intentional. And the placement of this art, plays in with that reflection, that's part of the way of thinking about how do you build a new building next to a revered old building. This is a construction image, so you can see it kind of carries through to the interior, though all of us have been here many times now. But the idea that you really gently touch the old building. It's almost like the elevation of the west wing of the original is almost like artwork in this space. Nothing touches it. It's kind of a rarefied object. And even when incomplete, the bridge goes by it but doesn't touch it, and you can kind of see the old from this new space. And I think, I think that works now, and I thought it worked then. I think it's a pretty interesting idea. At this point, too, they're also doing some conservation preservation work on the 1925 building. So you've seen this image already, but this was cleaned during this process, and the reading room the coloration was really reconsidered. So this is from 1985, so it's a moment in time architecturally where we were reconsidering color. And I've always been surprised, actually, that this space wasn't repainted, because it is really such a moment in time. It represents what was going on in postmodernism, what we call postmodernism, with the vibrant colors. It wasn't what it was originally. These are actually kind of, in theory, were drawn from the Grant Wood murals. So the coloration has more to do with those murals than it has to do with the actual original coloration of that space, which was much, much, much more muted. And so this kind of detailing would have been relying on the relief of the plaster detailing to change the tone, rather than actually painting parts of it, you know, vermilion or red or whatever you want to call that color, and blue. And, you know, this was a very much a moment in time. And then kind of rediscovering the sort of the fireplace room, which had been kind of lost to the ages. This is back of house in the previous iteration. So I want to talk just very briefly, I promise I'm almost done, about the evolution of the campus. These are just a few images to kind of keep in mind when you think about this building. This is the campus now from 1928, so 3 years after the building's done. LeBaron's done. The library's done, obviously. 1 in this case is Marston, 2 is Beardshire, 3 is Curtis. Dairy Science Building is over there. If you're interested, the blue buildings are all done by Proudfoot and Bird. They're all done in limestone. The orange building off the bottom is what used to be the YMCA, also done by Proudfoot and Bird. So they really were a accomplished firm that did most of the buildings on this campus, but it's still a very porous campus, but you can understand how Central Campus is starting to become an organizing thing. That you're organizing LeBaron, Curtis, Beardshire, that's clearly anchoring that central space. Marston, or the Memorial Union rather, will soon start to close off the south end, and you'll start to understand what we think of as Central Campus is largely in place by 1928. And logically, the building is entered from the east side, because that east faces the Central Campus, and that makes sense. You're gonna face it towards the campus. But in 1985, they discovered this space. Now, if anybody remembers this space prior to this building, there were barracks buildings that filled this space from the north end of Marston Hall down to about the middle of Peterson Hall. So that was filled with barracks buildings that went east-west. I tried to find an aerial photograph from like 1980, because this space is completely unrecognizable. Then south of the library at that point, we know there's a parking lot. So this space had a parking lot in it and a bunch of barracks buildings that served as the Department of Architecture. By placing this building here and reconsidering that space, this is, in my view, like Iowa State University's most successful quad. You know, it operates in tandem with Central Campus. So you can start to see this is a campus space. Like Central Campus is a more bucolic, kind of Olmsted, Central Park-like space. This is more like what you would see as a collegiate quad, and it's about the only one on campus. So just plant that as an idea, like what, if you're looking forward, like how could we change the library so that it would have the same kind of spatial impact if you were to add on to it again. Thanks.
Okay, now I just want to go off script because there's like so much that Sydney, Alison, and Paul have raised that I would love to just have a conversation around, but I've been told that I have to talk about the library. So we'll try to get through that. But I have to say, it's wonderful being on a campus like this because we are currently engaging one right now, architecture classes. The students are starting to reimagine the reading room, the rotunda, and the mural room. And we've actually talked about the palette, and we've talked about how do we embrace the original aesthetic and still make it usable for our students. It needs a serious infrastructure redo, right? We cannot support all the devices and the Wi-Fi and the data needs that our students have. Still making it comfortable and usable while keeping that original reading room feeling, right? It's really hard to bring all of that together. So that's their challenge. I'm waiting to see what they come up with. And then we just were approached by another architecture class that wants to talk with us about how we're reimagining the library, and they want to hang some, they said 5-foot radius. I hope they meant 5-foot diameter round thing and hang it from our ceiling. I love our students, they have great ideas, and I always worry that, reality and the physics get in the way. But we're gonna work with them and hope that we can support their project. So I guess I should actually introduce myself. I'm Hilary Seo. I am the Dean of the Library, and I have had the honor of serving as the Dean for 7 years. And the library includes not only Parks Library, but Vet Med Library located in Patterson Hall on the Vet Med campus. I started here as a librarian nearly 22 years ago, and I have watched the library transform from traditional collections-focused library to a library that centers the services, the programs, the resources, and the spaces that support all of our users, our faculty, our staff, our students across campus. So I've been asked, what does a 21st century library look like? Well, this is it. You're in it. We have been reimagining the library for quite some time now. And we have had many challenges, and we have been forced to change, right? I mean, there's opportunities, and then there's just, oh my gosh, we need to pick up the pace. So it's a vibrant and active library that has served our campus for over 150 years. The original building we've had for 100 years. It's still a wonderful building, but it has infrastructure issues. We're not changing it. We're not getting rid of it. Don't worry. Over the past, I would say 15 years, we've really put the effort into rethinking how we're going to support over 30,000 students, and they come in through those doors. Today, it is a bustling home away from home with 2,600 seats. 72% are within arm's reach of electrical power. That's the #1 request we get from our students. Second to that is whiteboards. They don't care about our collections. This is what they need to do their work, and we're happy to support them. We do get about 6,000 to 10,000 visitors a day. The 10,000 usually around prep week and finals, but clearly they're coming partly because we're on Central Campus, and it is just a wonderful place to be. We allow food in the library. That's a huge change. We have a cafe. For those of us that grew up, well, we won't say when. My college did not even allow us to have water. We sat in those libraries for hours studying, and they were really hurting us health-wise. I mean, think about it. They didn't let us drink water. So now we actually allow them to have food and water and to keep themselves going. One of the biggest drivers in the changes that we have experienced is due to technology. We've gone from card catalogs to online catalogs, print catalogs to electronic resources. Don't worry, we still have 2.3 million volumes, over 2.3 million volumes. But because of this shift, we have been able to shrink the print collection's footprint, allowing us to reimagine those spaces and make them more publicly accessible and dedicated to supporting our students. We've gone from typewriters to laptops. We've gone from photocopiers to scanners. These changes create opportunities and challenges, enabling us to pivot to support today's users in very different ways. So I'm going to walk you through our 21st century library. This is room 198. This is the original building, and it does not look like the 1925 building. It is now on central scheduling. University courses are held here, and it has been intentionally designed the way it is. The stations around the room allow for collaboration among the students during class time. The professor can be up in front while the students follow along at those stations. Moving on. This is our tech lending. So something that the library focuses on is affordable education. It is a priority for this campus. It is a priority for us. Tech lending provides the necessary technology for our students in case, one, their technology has to go to the hospital. We don't want them to miss a beat, right? But also for those students who can't afford the high-end laptop or computer that supports the software that they need for maybe one class. It also provides things like, we have like 1,200 items that can be checked out. Laptops, iPads, headphones, graphing calculators, cables. We want to make sure that these students have what it takes. We look at ourselves as helping to level the playing field. We want to make sure every student has those opportunities regardless of their financial situation. And we get used. Every year there are over 15,000 bookings for tech lending. We also want to make sure that they have the things to do their classwork, right? So projects, video recorders, microphones. We even have a portable theater that they can check out. And our student groups, even I think maybe our Greek community, can check these out and put them out and use them. So this program allowed us to quickly set up a long-term lending program during the pandemic. We knew that many of our students went home without anything except for maybe their phone and possibly a tablet. Through tech lending, we set up long-term lending programs. We could drop ship them laptops and hotspots. And this really helped a lot of our students who were trying to, could you imagine trying to take a class on your phone? I don't know how would you write a term paper on your phone? I had a hard time just writing it just with all the equipment that I had. So this is really something that we have focused on and making sure that we continue to provide the support that they have, that they need. And getting back to spaces, the collaboration corridor. This is a space that you passed when you entered into the front lobby. Many of our alums come back and they're like amazed. They're like, what happened? It used to be all covered up. It was staff space. The windows were covered. It is now this bright, vibrant space that feels like Starbucks. That is what they have come to expect, and that's what they're used to. It enabled us to create collaborative spaces, the co-labs as we call them, with the technology they need to collaborate, do group projects, class projects. And when we opened it up, I seriously thought it was just going to be bustling, just noisy. I go in there with donors to show off, the spaces and encourage them to recognize what great work we do and that their donor dollars are helpful. And the students stare at me like, be quiet, we're studying. I'm like, okay. Our students are great at kind of self-monitoring and giving everyone around them the evil eye when they are making noise. But it's great to see how they're adapting to spaces. And as soon as we open up a newly refreshed or renovated space, they just pour in and they just take over. We've actually had to change some policies around room usage because we can't use our spaces when we need to teach classes and things like that. So we love the fact that they're engaged with us. And again, responding to our student needs. Something that is President Winterstein's priority is childcare on campus. And during the pandemic, health and wellness, student government, the Graduate and Professional Student Senate came to us and asked if we could create a family-friendly space. And this is located on our lower level. And we were able to create a reservable space that has 2 workstations and an educational computer for kids, toys, things like that. There's a printer. Everything is in there so that so parents and guardians don't need to leave, and they can just stay there with their kids. Nearby is our children's literature collection down in Tier 1. It's also located near our family restroom and also the lactation room. So we are responding to the needs of our modern day student. It is not what we always think about as the traditional student, especially when we were in college. You know, there was a certain kind of demographic for us that is definitely changing. Getting back to this space, the Catalyst right across the way is also our original 1925 building. And we love the fact that you walk through the Grantwood mural room and you get the 1925 building vibe. You walk down and then you walk into this bright, colorful room. This is where things like digital humanities work happens, data repository, data research, or research data services all exist. It's just nice to have that juxtaposition of the original moving into what is truly a 21st century library and the services that we can provide there. And, okay, you can't tell what that is yet. And then coming out of the pandemic, and I should say that the Catalyst was actually created during the pandemic. The students were very surprised when they came back and saw this. But coming out of the pandemic, we realized that our students needed the ability to take online classes. We still had some hybrid classes, and ISU Online was coming online. And they needed to go from in-person classes straight into an online class. Well, we saw them trying to do this in the middle of the library, and you could tell they weren't engaged because they really didn't feel like they could speak up. They couldn't really talk in their classes. So we can't build individual study spaces. That's just not possible. So we came up with this Central Parks pods. And they are individual, they're phone booths, really. Don't tell that to students. They don't know what a phone booth is.
Book your ideal study space with ease. These pods are perfect for creating a personal, distraction-free environment. A place for when you need your space. A tiny room for you to sit in. Find your center at Central Parks.
So this started out as a pilot project. We really didn't think folks would actually use these, but we got some feedback and they were all excited. So we installed them. They are reservable, and they're full all the time. We just, I don't know if you know this, we just had our Forever True Day challenge, and our pod challenge was met. And we will be installing yet another pod, and I'm sure that one is going to be full as well. Oop. All right. So continuing on with making sure that our students and our faculty have the tools they need. I mentioned that affordable education is one of our priorities. This is Studio 2B. It is also down in the lower level. It is a studio, it's an easy studio. It is a one-button studio. Our faculty can go down there and create what we're calling open educational resources. These open educational resources, think of the replacement for textbooks, right? Textbooks can be expensive. Our faculty can go down and record tutorials or their lectures and put them into a version of an electronic textbook, right? So we're bringing the cost of education down for our students. And the difference with our studio is that the first time you reserve the space, you get someone to walk you through the process. You don't have to figure it out on your own. Faculty come in and they immediately can just hop in and start doing it. Once they're introduced, again, it's one button. They're comfortable coming back time and again and just recording their materials. Our students are also using them for live streaming and podcasting. And we just talked with the students and they want more podcasting options. We're also looking to partner with Zante and IT to put in some a media production studio right outside of the recording studio. Oops, and I forgot to play the video. There we go.
Hi, I'm Hilary Seo, Dean of the University Library, and I'm speaking to you today from our new Studio TV in Parks Library, where we can record high-quality presentations with just the press of a button. The variety of content we can create and share is limited only by one's imagination. Studio TV is funded in part by donor support, and it's just one of many ways the University Library continues to evolve.
By the way, our videos are created by our wonderful comms team. They're scattered throughout the room. Thank you so much. We've also started moving into recognizing the students more holistically, right? They are not just students here stressing over classes. They have lives. There are challenges that they face that are not just academic. So as part of the university's Cyclone Support Initiative, the library launched Cyclone Support Central, and this is a partnership between the library and Student Affairs. We are making sure that we recognize all the challenges that our students face, the mental health challenges, the challenges navigating this giant campus that is so decentralized that you don't always know what resources are available. You don't even know what your problem actually is. So how can we support you and find what you need when you are in that moment, when you're in crisis, when you need someone to talk to? So this partnership has really revitalized a space that we couldn't quite figure out what to do with, but it's right here on the first floor, and trying to make sure that our students just have a place to go, one, to unplug, two, to get connected to resources. We just opened this semester. Next semester, we're hoping to develop more of the programming and making sure that we have peers, their students in there to help them, or volunteers on campus that can help them connect to resources. We started this year with, and folks made fun of us for doing this, but I think it was really important that we really launched this space to get the students recognizing what we can do. We offered free haircuts, and again, this is in collaboration with Student Affairs. The great thing was, I think every slot was filled, and the volunteer group that comes in to do this also knew how to work with textured hair, which is not always available in Ames and surrounding communities. We offered flu shots. We had resume reviews during the career fair, so the students could get ready. We're trying to make things just easy. We want them to do these things. We want them to engage. They're here in the library. Let's not make them have to go chase something across campus. Let's make sure that they're just here and it's available to them. So that is how the library is changing. And I want to leave time for questions. So can you help me in thanking our presenters one more time?